Welcome back to Klepper's Corner. Today in history. March 6th is one of those dates where history doesn't just happen quietly in the background. No. March 6th is the kind of day where empires get rearranged, revolution starts simmering, scientists rewrite the laws of matter, and the Supreme Court makes decisions so catastrophic that historians still use them as the academic equivalent of a cautionary campfire story. So today we're taking a trip across thousands of years of human chaos to look at how this one date helped shape religion, science, colonization, civil rights, and even your headache medicine. Let's begin where all good stories of power begin. Ancient Rome. Segment 1. Augustus becomes Rome's ultimate multitasker. In 12 BCE, Roman Emperor Augustus decided that being the most powerful political figure in the world just wasn't quite enough. So he added another title to the resume, Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest of the Roman state religion, which means Augustus was now the emperor, the supreme military commander, the political authority, and the top religious leader. That's not a government. That's a one-man LinkedIn profile. But it was incredibly strategic. By controlling religion, Augustus made political loyalty feel like spiritual loyalty. Disagreeing with the emperor suddenly felt a lot like disagreeing with the gods, which, if you think about it, is brilliant branding. And the concept stuck around. Centuries later, when Christianity took over the Roman Empire, that same framework of political authority, fused with religious authority, eventually landed in the office of the Bishop of Rome, also known today as the Pope. So, in a weird historical domino effect, Augustus grabbing that priest title in 12 BCE helped shape the institutional structure of the Vatican nearly 2,000 years later. History is weird like that. One administrative promotion turns into centuries of theology. Segment 2. The siege that accidentally helped create constitutional government. Jump ahead to March 6th, 1204. In medieval France, King Philip II captures Chateau Gaillard, a massive fortress built by Richard the Lionheart. This wasn't just a castle. Chateau Gaillard was basically the medieval equivalent of a military cheat code guarding Normandy. After a brutal 7-month siege, Philip II finally breaks through. The fortress falls, and suddenly, England loses control of Normandy, which is terrible news for the English king, John. Without those lands, John loses money. Without money, he raises taxes. And when kings raise taxes in the Middle Ages, the nobles respond the same way people respond to surprise fees today, with fury. 11 years later, that fury produces the Magna Carta, which means this one fortress falling in 1204 indirectly leads to one of the foundational documents of constitutional government. So if you're keeping track, medieval castle sieges helped create modern ideas like limits on government power, which means every history class that skips straight to Magna Carta without mentioning the castle fight beforehand is leaving out the most important part. Somebody had to lose a war first. Segment 3. The Missouri Compromise draws a line. Literally. Now we jump to the United States in 1820. And if American politics feels tense today, allow me to introduce you to Congress 2 centuries ago. Missouri wants to join the Union as a slave state. The Senate is evenly balanced between free states and slave states, meaning one new state could tip the political balance of the entire country. So Congress does what Congress does best. It invents a compromise that solves the problem temporarily and guarantees future arguments. Missouri enters as a slave state. Maine enters as a free state. And then Congress draws a line across the map at latitude 36 degrees, 30 minutes. North of the line, slavery banned. South of the line, slavery allowed. It's literally the geopolitical version of taping a piece of duct tape across the country and saying, let's just not fight about this for a while. The compromise holds for about 30 years. Because the moment the United States starts expanding west, the question comes roaring back. Which side of the line do the new territories fall on? In other words, the Missouri Compromise didn't solve the problem of slavery, it just put it on a timer. Segment 4. The Alamo turns defeat into legend. Fast forward to March 6, 1836. The Alamo falls. After 13 days of siege, Mexican forces under General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna stormed the mission in San Antonio. The Texian defenders, about 200 men, are wiped out. Among them, William B. Travis, James Bowie, and Davy Crockett. From a military standpoint, it's a complete defeat. But politically, it becomes one of the most powerful propaganda moments in American history. Remember the Alamo turns into a rallying cry. Volunteers pour into Texas. And 6 weeks later, Sam Houston's forces defeat Santa Anna at the Battle of San Jacinto. Texas becomes independent. Then Texas eventually joins the United States, which triggers the Mexican-American War, which adds enormous Western territories to the United States, which reignites the slavery debate that the Missouri Compromise tried to freeze. So the fall of the Alamo doesn't just become a legend. It helps trigger a chain reaction that reshapes the map of North America. Segment 5. The Supreme Court makes possibly the worst decision in U.S. history. Now we arrive at March 6, 1857. The U.S. Supreme Court issues the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott was an enslaved man who argued that because he had lived in free territories, he should legally be free. Instead of narrowly ruling on the case, the court decided to rewrite constitutional law entirely. Chief Justice Roger Taney declared that African Americans could not be citizens of the United States. And then the court went even further. It ruled that Congress had no authority to ban slavery in the territories, which means the Missouri Compromise line that Congress drew decades earlier, completely invalid. Imagine trying to calm a national crisis and instead accidentally pouring gasoline on the fire. The decision outraged the North, energized abolitionists, fractured political parties, and pushed the country dramatically closer to civil war. And historians today widely agree on one thing. If the Supreme Court had tried to design the most destabilizing ruling possible, it probably would have looked exactly like this one. Segment 6. Mendeleev organizes the universe. Now let's shift gears from political disasters to scientific brilliance. On March 6, 1869, Russian chemist Dmitry Mendeleev presents his periodic table of elements. Before this moment, chemistry was mostly organized chaos. Scientists knew elements existed, but there was no coherent structure explaining how they related to one another. Mendeleev changed that by arranging elements according to atomic weight and repeating patterns in their properties. But here's the boldest part. He left blank spaces in the table. Imagine presenting a scientific chart and saying, "These empty spots represent elements we haven't discovered yet, but I'm confident they exist." That's not just organizing science, that's predicting the future. And when scientists later discovered gallium, scandium, and germanium, their properties matched Mendeleev's predictions almost perfectly, which turned the periodic table from a clever chart into one of the most powerful predictive tools in science. Segment 7. Ghana sparks the wave of African independence. On March 6, 1957, the British colony known as the Gold Coast becomes the independent nation of Ghana. Led by Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana becomes the first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence from European colonial rule. This moment sends shockwaves across the continent, because suddenly, independence doesn't look like an abstract dream anymore. It looks achievable. Within just a few years, more than a dozen African nations follow the same path, and the global impact goes even further. Martin Luther King Jr. attended Ghana's independence ceremony and later spoke about how the African struggle for freedom mirrored the civil rights movement in the United States. In other words, March 6, 1957 helped reshape not just Africa, but the global fight against colonialism and racial inequality. Segment 8. Aspirin, space stations, and a computer virus panic. Finally, let's talk about the surprising mix of science and technology milestones tied to this date. On March 6, 1899, the pharmaceutical company Bayer officially trademarks aspirin, which means humanity finally industrializes one of its oldest remedies, willow bark pain relief. Fast forward nearly a century. On March 6, 1986, the Soviet Union launches the Mir space station, creating the first long-term orbital research station. And then, in 1992, March 6 becomes famous for a completely different reason: the Michelangelo computer virus. This virus was designed to activate on the artist Michelangelo's birthday and wipe hard drives worldwide. News reports predicted millions of computers would be destroyed. The actual number? Maybe 20,000. But the panic helped launch the modern cybersecurity industry, which means one moderately successful virus scare helped convince the world that digital security was about to become a very big deal. In conclusion, March 6th shows how one date can carry the weight of entire historical turning points. It's the day Augustus fused religion and political authority in Rome. The day medieval warfare helped set the stage for constitutional government. The day America tried to draw a line across slavery, only to see it explode decades later in courtrooms and battlefields. It's also the day scientists mapped the structure of matter, nations broke free from colonial rule, and humanity took both giant leaps into space and small steps toward protecting its computers from digital chaos. History isn't just a collection of isolated events. It's a chain reaction of decisions, discoveries, victories, and disasters. And March 6th happens to be one of those days where the chain reaction echoes across centuries.